see. Is it coming through? All right. All right. So hello, I'm Weather from Summer School Discord, and I'm going to be walking through a game of Kassadin versus Pantheon. So again, I know I just went over win conditions, but every team has a slightly different set of win conditions, and the reason I go over this every game is to make sure you know where to be playing to, and it's really important both in picking your champion to know where you're going to be playing to, and as a mid laner where you can roam to or where you need to be rotating to. So, for example, Kassadin can potentially split push, and it depends on the game. So that's kind of the reason why you want to be doing this. Every role has a different reason to be rehearsing win conditions. For example, AD carry, you're going to be thinking about which towers you can take faster. Top lane, you're going to be thinking about what kind of pressure you can put on this side of the map without dying. It's yeah, I hate top lane. Jungle is a similar thing to mid. They both have a lot of freedom to decide where they're going to play towards that whatever win condition. Okay, so with this game, I'm going to again start with their team. They've got a Leona who's going to be looking for team fights. She can also play towards picks. Darius is going to be playing towards picks and skirmishes. I'm imagining Shadow Kane and a Pantheon and a Jhin, right? So first thing you're going to notice about this team is they're all AD, right? So that's something that you always should be considering because if you just build one defensive item, it pays off so much whenever their team's all AD. So, in this game, it wouldn't be great to be building Ninja Tabi because they don't have a whole lot of auto attack reliant AD carries. But that's the kind of idea you want to be having in mind, where it's simple itemization from the start of the game. Zhonya's would be a pretty core item for you in this case. Even though they have a lot of CC with the Leona, Zhonya's not necessarily would dodge CC, but would make it so that they do less damage to you after they CC you. Okay, but looking at their team, they're going to be playing a lot towards these fast engages. And they're probably going to be playing towards the center of a lane. So they'll probably have like one person or two people bottom, and then all of a sudden the Pantheon starts ulting in, and the Kane's coming through this wall, right? So then there's four people bottom in an instant. That's the way that this team comp is going to play out. In different contexts, sure, but that's what this team wants to do. They want to throw a ton of people at a lane where they have tons of engage. And they got tons of engage on bottom. They've also got a reasonable amount on top with his pole, so both of these lanes aren't really that safe. And if Pantheon ults far enough behind them, it doesn't matter if they have a Janna, because he's just going to be able to layer another stun. So what I'm saying is their team is probably going to focus bottom, just because that's 2 kills instead of 1. After that, they're going to be playing towards whatever lane they have the longest lane in. They can play a little bit back, like wait until you're attacking a turret, and then try and long engage on you, like because the Pantheon and the Kane to go through a wall. You have a lot of very long engage. Same thing of playing against the TF. So what do you want to be doing to be playing against that? But before we go into that, let's look at your team because that's what they want to do. What does your team want to do? Well, your team straight up wants to poke and then finish off. You guys want to sit in a lane, which makes this really awkward because you got an Ezreal who wants to poke, and Kassadin can like finish off the kill, right? And they got a Jarvan to finish off the kill, and if the Urgot lands his ult, that can finish off a kill. But all in all, this team has a lot better poke than the other team. So you're going to be playing towards that. Whether or not this is while you're rotating away, you throw Qs at them from the Ezreal. Or while you're rotating away, the Urgot throws down his stuff. Or even the Janna has a surprisingly good poke now too during the early game phase. Surprising amount of poke comparatively. Now if you're looking into a split push matchup, top lane matchup could go either way, but the mid lane matchup is probably going to favor Pantheon. So you're not really going to have the edge on normal split pushing. You're going to have to be looking for these contexts of where you're able to poke them to the point that they can't really engage on you, or rotating in a way that you can make sure they don't have those long-ranged engages. Now, there's a couple of ways you can watch for these long-range engages, and one, if you track the jungler's pathing, you can generally guess when he's going to be looking for those long-range ganks. If you pay attention to Pantheon's recall timers, that's where he's most commonly going to gank. Whenever he bases, he then walks up this far, and he ults the lane. That's how he normally does it, because it's not that easy to track. But if it's not easy to track because you have no wards, then he can just walk out a lane and do it anyways. So you don't want to give him that opportunity either. So what we're going to be looking at is how your team plays this kind of early game phase where they're starting to push down on like poke, and how you're going to be transitioning into a mid game where you're not ever able to correctly siege because you have to pay attention to this long range engage between a Leona ult, between a Pantheon ult, between a Kayn coming through a wall. There's a lot of potential to get engaged on. So to deal with that engage, you want to generally rotate away from the Leona and make sure you keep an eye on these guys, the Kayn and the Pantheon. After you guys get some tank items and you can be the ones engaging, you know, the Jarvan goes in with a little bit of armor, the Urgot goes in with a little bit of armor, you're able to play this team fight pretty effectively. But until then, they've just got so much more crowd control and so much more engage potential that you're probably going to want to avoid fights until you get these tank items. Okay, so that's a long-winded introduction on talking about win conditions, but it's incredibly important. It's incredibly important to have a plan whenever you go into this game, because same thing with chess, you're thinking moves ahead, because if you're only playing that move at that time, you're going to lose. Okay, first complaint is actually really easy, and this is something that really bothers me because it's such an easy thing to fix. Whenever you don't get out of base early, you're giving the enemy team a really simple but pretty critical advantage. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to explain the importance of these probably 5 seconds that you're spending extra in base. Well, you obviously know that 5 seconds is enough for them to get over to this bush and potentially invade you guys. Of course you know that. But you don't feel like this is impactful for some other reason. Well, okay, your mentality is, one, either they're not going to invade, which is not a good mentality because they could invade, and they have a lot of CC to potentially do it. So they could invade, so that's not an excuse. The second thing is, well, your team's going to do it. That's also not a good idea because you can contribute here. And if you're trying to win a game, you should be doing everything you can to contribute. And if you're relying on your team here, you're just waiting to be carried in very small ways. The third reason you're doing this is, well, my team shouldn't be there anyways, or they're just going to play safe. Well, if your team plays safe or isn't there anyways, you're giving up red buff, which completely removes the jungler's level 3 gank, which means that you could potentially be putting top lane behind or mid lane. So now let's think about a couple of these different scenarios. If you put your jungler behind, where he can't do this buff, maybe he starts his blue buff, right? And he's clearing down because he knows this was taken, or maybe he invades. If he invades and he dies over here, right? Because this matchup isn't great, but if you're looking at how these other lanes are going to play, Pantheon's probably going to be pushing you in. It's the nature of that lane early. So Pantheon can come and help, right? So you're already putting your jungler in a potential 2v1 situation. And if you're doing that, he's going to lose. And then that puts him even further behind and gives your lane a kill, which makes you lose lane. Or, okay, maybe your jungler dies here. And maybe he loses flash. Well, then he can die over here, which means that now the jungler is really fed. And now that the Kayn's really fed, he can just ult and kill Ezreal, which means that Ezreal's behind. This snowballs. It's the nature of this game. But whenever you think about these first 5 seconds and this first kill that happens in the first 2 minutes of the game, think about every game you surrender at 15 minutes and then add the context of snowballing. The earlier something happens, the more impactful it is towards that 15-minute gold lead, because all of those things that happen up until then snowballed. This gold lead, this flash, this buff, every little thing here contributes more to 15-minute surrenders than like dying potentially at level 2, just because it happened earlier in the game and has more snowballing potential. So this level 1 small thing you can do will probably prevent like 1/10 of 15-minute surrenders, right? Because you're only getting out just in time for these first like 1 or 2 minutes, right? Just not even 2 minutes. And that's already stopping a lot of potential early leads that you just don't need to give. So always make sure whenever you sign up to play a game, you get your ass out of base early. There's no reason to be waiting in base. You have that loading screen for a reason. And the reason that the game gives you this time, why would they not just spawn minions with you, right? Because they expect and want this level 1 stuff to happen. They don't want it to be super effective because they have nerfed some of the advantages level 1, but they give you this time window specifically to play to this part of the game, this level 1 aggression. And professional play has a huge emphasis on this shit for a reason. So get out early. It's a really simple and really easy complaint to fix. Because if you just pay attention, right, that's it. But if you're not paying attention, then you're not doing everything in your power to win, and that's not an excuse, right? It's simple when you say it like that, right? Okay, so we're going to be talking first, since I was telling you one of the things that they have is jungle tracking, because long range engages, right? And I'm going to be going real quick to the start of the game, the easiest way to be predicting where someone started. So since you don't see the Pantheon here, I'm going to be coming back to your level 1 like lane in a minute, but I'm paying attention to this jungle tracking shit. Do you see what happens here? Do you see how early the gen is to lane? Because the gen is this early to lane, you know he didn't leash. It's that simple. He just didn't leash. And if the gen did not leash, that means that the odds the Kayn started here is pretty small. And if I was the Kayn, and I was not I don't know if the Darius helped him or not, because the Darius is full health and full mana, and I think he would have used an ability on that. But that makes me think that the Kayn either started Raptors or Wolves or one of his secondary camps, right? And in order to rush level 4, because a lot of junglers do that. And you need to be understanding what these junglers do want to do. Kayn is one of those junglers that doesn't have a very strong early game and is going to be looking to just kind of clear early. And if you're doing that and you hold off like your red buffs take for a little bit longer until you're a little bit higher level or something like that, or maybe you beat 6, you're in a better spot on champions like Kayn. And we're going to check. Look at this. So I didn't check earlier. This is just knowing what enemy junglers want to do and getting that little bit of knowledge from the minimap. You saw how early Gen was down here. And because of this, there was no reason for their Kayn to be doing blue buff, right? He would have gotten a leash. And if he wasn't doing blue buff, he was probably trying to rush 6 or 4 or whatever. Do these early clears. Because of this, whatever you're predicting when the enemy jungler is going to gank you, and what's the number one thing that fucks you in a lane? Like getting ganked, right? Sure, you can get outplayed in lane, but how often is it that you're just outplayed? You get ganked, right? That's always the excuse. But once you start tracking the enemy jungler, you'll notice you get ganked less and less by just doing small things. So, okay, what do you do whenever you have this knowledge? If the jungler starts here, his full clear is going to be about 3.5 to 4 minutes. And depending upon which way he decides to do it, he could go from this to red to wolves to blue to grump and then try and gank bottom, which would be a very reasonable thing for him to do, or then to gank mid. I think that's what he's going to do, and this is just what you have to do. If you don't get early vision on the enemy jungler, you have to make assumptions of what they're doing, and you're not going to be right every time, but you're going to be right enough of the time to make it worthwhile. And, okay, so in this case, I'm imagining 3.5 to 4 minutes, Kayn's going to be down here. And that means that if you're playing this lane and you're pushing, he's going to gank you. Simple as that. 3.5 minutes, he's going to gank you. 4 minutes, he's going to gank you from the bottom side of your lane. That's my guess if you're pushing. If you're not pushing, there's a chance that he does come through this wall if you're low enough. And on the third context, if you are playing to the other side of the lane, Kayn can't gank you. There's too much distance to cover, and you could just walk it out. So once you understand where the Kayn is, a lot of the times you don't even need to ward. And if you're warding for a Kayn, the ward you specifically would need is like over this wall over here. But then if you have this ward, you can't defend yourself from if he decides to do scuttle first and then come over. So you can't properly ward for a Kayn in this game, in this context. You know where he wants to be, though, because he wants to probably gank you from bottom 3.5 to 4 minutes. And if he doesn't gank you, that means he's ganking bottom. So we're going to be paying attention to what he does a little bit later, but we're going to go back into your level 1. Because what you do level 1 is pretty damn important. If you decide to push, that's fine, but you need to, again, have a plan. If your plan is just I'm gonna beat him to level 2, you're not gonna fucking do anything to a Pantheon at level 2. You're really not. It's just not gonna change anything. It's gonna be the same thing as if you were level 1. And the only reason you would be pushing is, okay, you're gonna reset the wave, or you're gonna try and make it so that way you can help your jungler. Now that can be you help your jungler invade, you help your jungler if you think he's gonna get invaded, or maybe you're gonna just throw down a ward somewhere so that way you know where the Kayn is. So maybe you saw that the gen popped up down here, and to confirm, right, instead of just making an assumption, you just pushed in this wave, you drop a ward over at the Raptors, and now you know, oh, he's already taken those? Okay, that's where he started. Now, this is actually a pretty stupid idea in this context. It's just trying to give an example of what you would do with this time. But if you did this, you would probably die, because Kayn's probably on red buff, Pantheon would hit level 2 and probably stun you, and then it's just not a fun scenario. So you wouldn't do that. But the only reason you'd be doing this is to reset the wave, and how fast can you even push this, right? You're not spam pushing minions, you're not doing anything to really get this in there. And Pantheon, okay, comes from Raptors, so you know that Pantheon probably helped Raptors. And depending upon which keystone he's using, you could also verify this. Yeah, he's got Airy. He's probably using the Mana Surge thing, which means he probably, or the Mana Flow. So he probably used a spell on this. All these little clues add up to know exactly what the enemy jungler is doing. And that's a really, really, really important skill to learn for every role. Whether or not you're playing AD or mid, knowing where the enemy jungler is lets you know how you can play. Okay. Okay, that's not bad. So normally, looking for little spells like that is fine. The only thing you have to worry about is minion aggro. And if you notice, what happens here is you take exactly the same amount of damage because of minion aggro. However, there is a bonus to this. It makes the minions attack you, which means that you're going to harder push to him. And if you wanted to reset this wave, which I'm going to, for now, assume that you wanted to bounce this wave, this is a pretty good thing for you to do. And this is a little thing about wave management. That was a much freer trade in terms of, like, you didn't get minion aggro, but you see, again, you're just trading evenly. And if you're paying attention to what could happen here, then, is I was saying that Kayn would probably gank you from bottom, but if your wave gets frozen right here, it could be a lot sooner. So it depends what happens also in this next few moments. You're actually given a lot of freedom in this lane, which is surprising. It's probably because the Pantheon aggro changes. I actually haven't seen a lot of Pantheons recently. Oh, come on, you can do better than that. So you knew what he was doing. I like this. By putting this ward over here, it shows me you knew what to do. It shows me just you didn't know how to ward. However, this is kind of one of those missed opportunity contexts. You could have probably roamed bottom here, because if you didn't want to be in lane, like you were this scared, right, then this would be a pretty easy lane to bait for, right? The Leona wants to go in. It's the nature of this lane. It is very early to go down here, and I probably wouldn't go down here, but this is a potential missed opportunity. So if they die here, it shows you what you could have done. All right, and you see, this is actually a terrible spot for the wave to be in, and this is just kind of where you've managed it. But it is bouncing to you now. This is very good patience. Okay. So in a normal game, I just wanted to mention, in a normal game, if the junglers were doing a standard clear, this would have been perfect wave management. Because this wave, at the danger window of 3 minutes to 3.5 minutes, is going to be close to your turret, or almost at your turret, while putting the enemy in a vulnerable spot. So this would have been excellent wave management if it was a standard clear. However, you know this wasn't a standard clear because you just warded over here to confirm it. So this wave is probably going to be bouncing out by 4 minutes, which means that it's going to be in a worse spot. Because there's no way you can stop this from hitting your turret. But like you see, 3 minutes to 3.5 minutes, that primary ganking window, that's where it'd be on your turret. And that's where you just set up for. See, as I was saying, you set up perfectly with that wave management for your jungler to gank, but now you're going to get ganked because Kane's probably cleared down to here, and at 4 minutes he's going to be looking into your lane. Alright, he's clearing slower than I thought. I don't know exactly what he's doing different. Oh, he based. Okay, that's what it is. How did that happen? Let me see that. It's probably that you guys ended up tanking it here. Yeah, you guys drew a lot of minion aggro, so that's actually helped you with the wave management. Okay, but we're paying attention again to like trading. A lot of this damage that you have so far has been from minions, so you do need to pay a little bit more attention to minions. And this is a very dangerous time still, because 4 minutes just hit. You're being very patient. This is actually really good, depending upon if you're paying attention to that window. It might just be your playstyle, though, and if that's just your playstyle, you're not helping. Okay, so you just got a clue that the Kayn was over here, so the Kayn has no intention of ganking you anytime soon, especially since your wave is like this, so you're at a very, very good spot. Haven't taken too much harass, so they can't dive you, and you're playing patient enough to let a lot of the waves come to you. This is fine. In this specific matchup, I probably would not have started the Dark Seal, but, you know, judging by the way that you did get a gank, you might have been able to make it worthwhile, and you were managing a wave in a good way to have that happen, so could have worked, could have made it been worthwhile. I'm actually impressed that the Kayn was able to get down there so soon. We just saw him over here, so he must have based and then walked down. But you do know that that's where the Kayn's going to be focusing probably, just because the nature of a Pantheon also wants to roam down there, and they got a Leona to engage. They got a lot to work with down there. You just saw the Kayn behind here. He was going top. Whenever you see the Kayn going top here, I would be pinging back your Urgot, because he's going to stay and he's going to die. Jarvan signals, Kassadin signals, enemies are missing. Yeah, but you need to be pinging this guy back a lot more. And that, again, that's something you can contribute. There was no reason that this gank had to even happen, because you could have contributed to this. And if the Kayn didn't miss, it would have been free. Okay, so something else that I am noticing is yeah, okay. He messed up his combo a little bit, but you should have died there. You're not using your teleport very well, because you should never stay with this low of health. You have low health, low mana, and at this point in the game, I'm confident you have enough money to buy something. Maybe it's tier, maybe it's armor in tier, maybe it's your catalyst. But you have TP for a reason, right? And in this game, I told you your use would not be to split push, because you're probably not going to outsplit push the Pantheon unless he, you know, feeds you early or doesn't build MR. But he needs to be building a little bit of magic resist just for the nature of this lane. So I think that if he got like an early Hex Drinker, that's all he'd need, then full lethality, he's fine. But like, you're going to have a lot of trouble splitting against him. So your TP, if the reason you would have taken TP is for a recall timer, and if you want to be looking for a recall timer, all you've been doing this game is sitting under turret, and you understand your patience, right? If you understand your patience, how long would it take him to get this into your turret? Probably around 10 seconds. And I mean, you probably would have lost maybe 1 or 2 minions, but you base, and then you TP back, and if the tower is probably focusing the caddy, you might even be back in time for XP. Here's a chance that you could have based and avoided this whole thing. What if the Pantheon had taken Ignite? You know, you would have died there anyways, even with his minor misplay. You need to be looking for these windows if you have TP, and if you're not using it, you really shouldn't be taking TP, at least in this context, because you're not going to split push. You really should not split push in this game. If you took it just to match a Pantheon's ult, then you should just pick a different champion, right? Teleport doesn't match Pantheon's ult because by the time he's walked away and he's ulted there, you then have to wait 4.5 seconds or something like that to show up to that fight. The fight's already done. You're not going to use that to show up to a fight that Pantheon shows up to. You're only going to use that to split push and proactively use it. Teleport can only be used proactively now. If you're going to be starting a bottom lane gank, right, they're like right here. Your top laner teleports to a ward that's over here and then like walks like this. That's like the only way, or like way back here, right, where then they have so much room. You need this much room. And if there's a Pantheon, ulting down here, well, it's already done. You're not going to have those 4 seconds. This is an assassin. How long does his death recap say normally? Like 2, maybe? Maybe like 1? Maybe it's broken and it says like 16? But it doesn't matter. It's over by the time you TP down there. By the time you recognize it and TP down there, it's a waste. So you need to be looking for this for the recall timer. Or just take Ignite. And this window was your recall timer. So far, I've noticed your CSing is fine. You have good patience. Your warding ideas are good, but your placement's a little lousy. But you have some weird greed with, for starters, your summoners, because you're not using your TP, and now you're going to have to use both your flash and your TP. And you have some weird greed with, basically just that for starters. And see, now he's ulting. I don't know where he's ulting. What? You could have recalled there. Yeah, I don't know what happened. That's weird. This whole thing's weird. I don't know why he ulted for you there. How much money did you have? Yeah, you had enough for Catalyst and a Pink Ward, and you were denied like that whole wave. So you would have had enough for Catalyst. Or at least Tear and Shoes or something. There was no reason for you to stay for that extra wave. Okay, so your playstyle is very safe, and this is actually kind of bad. So right now, if you're looking into tracking the enemy jungler, right, there's a couple of different things you should be looking at. The most important thing to look at is right here. So whenever the icon's on the minimap, it's so nice of them to put these things. You know that the jungler is not here yet, but is going to be here soon when it's gray. When it's yellow, means that the jungler is either walking here or clearing a camp nearby. So like maybe doing Krugs, maybe doing Scuttle, or maybe just walking from base. When it's up, it's very likely the enemy jungler is here. So after this buff is spawned, 30 seconds or so later, unless there's like a very free gank, he probably is walking towards his other buff, just to do his clear. So this isn't an obvious gank, though. There's no way he would be looking mid here for anything. You are a little bit out-leveled, but not anymore. Where there is no advantage here, that he has no advantage here right now. You have Catalyst, which means that you're going to actually heal up some if you spend mana, right? You both have refillable, and the enemy jungler is probably clearing maybe like this right now to go down to his blue buff. It depends. He did recall, so my clear predictions might be off. But he just did his red, right? That's what the timer says. That's what the yellow icon means. And you have this time frame to be playing a little bit aggressive. There's no way he would be here right now just because of where your wave was and what he was doing. Pantheon has a little bit less health than you, so you could be looking to trade on him. And you have your Rift Walk, you have your E. You got a lot to work with here. So what I would be looking for right now is, okay, so you see this is an example of like a missed opportunity, right? Because you have no pressure on this wave, you can't show up for this. And what can you do to get pressure on the wave? Well, for starters, you can look to trade. Also, you can try and push. And you're not really doing either of those things throughout this entire game, except for the level 1 when he wasn't there. So a guidebook to looking to trade is paying attention to when he uses an ability. If he use and you can't use abilities yourselves, because then you are in a vulnerable position to be traded on. Whenever he uses his Q on a minion, right, like this one, then you have the potential to trade aggressively onto him. But the way that you've been playing so far, he never has a need to do that. And why doesn't he have a need to do that? Well, do you see the way you've been playing this whole game? Well, there's no reason for him to not just auto these minions because you're playing so far back. You have no spells now to even harass him. So you have completely, yeah, it's not that you have great wave management, it's that your playstyle is just really, really safe. And that's somewhat a problem. If you're looking for windows to trade, you're never creating them. You had a little bit of a window where you did have a health lead, and that's pretty much it so far. Enemy jungler is probably around these camps right now. Since he did just, gank top and kill top, he probably based and then is walking down here. And these predictions, again, mean he's not in your lane. And do you see how much damage you do? You do a considerable amount of damage, especially, what if you were to Rift Walk on him, right? And if you take, Presence of Mind whenever you're playing Kassadin, it lets you charge one extra of your ult to go in on him, which does a considerable amount more damage. So while you're, ready to level up, just R and then level up and go ahead and R again, and that does some more damage to him. So you've had windows to trade, you just don't. And I'll admit, Kassadin's not the best champion to be learning to trade on, but you can't be playing this safe. Like, yeah, see how much damage you do? It took you until 8.5 minutes, more than almost 9 minutes, to learn that you trade more efficiently than him. You don't need to be super scared. And if you're looking at little bits of advantages in this fight, right? For starters, you had a little bit more minions than him. But where else was an advantage? There really wasn't. Except for there was his health a little bit lower, right? He has a little bit less health. And then he just uses his abilities, and you decide to trade back on him. But why couldn't you have traded on him beforehand? You have catalysts to heal. You have potions to heal. You have a jungler who has been trying to gank your lane. And if you do this to create pressure, you can potentially draw the enemy jungler mid, and if you know where he is, that prevents you from dying to him but wastes his time. It also allows you opportunities to roam where you could have been the one going top and getting that kill instead of letting your Urgot die, or you could be looking bottom where your bot lane baits this. Yeah, see how easy this shit is? And yeah, there was no way Kayn got you. There's no way. He had to have ult. Oh, he just didn't ult. He did have ult, he just didn't ult. Awkward. He probably could have killed you there. He's typing in chat, oops. Pay attention! Level 1. Level 1. Remember this thing over here? You're not here? This is the same shit. Don't window shop. If you see that someone's missing, then you better either be walking all the way fucking back to base or watching your screen. So far, if you want to look into little things that you have done, right? So this one might not actually end up with a kill. But your Urgot died, and you died for 2 instances of you just not paying attention. Because you could have been pinging back from the first Kayn gank, and you could have seen the Leona coming. That's 2 instances of you just not paying attention, which is not an excuse. If you're playing this game, then you're playing this game. And you know how I was mentioning the ward over here that you put earlier? You did have a good idea to be doing that, and you did only have the window you had out of kind of just chance to do this. But your ward there was too early to do anything other than confirm he did not start there. And with the other signs that you had, you should have known that he wasn't starting there. So you're just mentioning that as well. You had some foresight, but it was too early of foresight. And that's just what their team's going to do, right? And why was their team able to do that? Well, look where this wave is. Do you know why this wave is here? Because you spent some time dead. Because you didn't have TP because you're, well, you didn't have TP for a couple of reasons, but yeah. And you know what else could have tracked him? Right there. Do you know how many wards you've put down this game? I'm not sure exactly, but I'm guessing one. And you're playing against a heavy roam champion. If you have the foresight to ward this, then you know obviously that, this is important, right? Then why aren't you warding for your lane? Now, not necessarily to prevent you from getting ganked because you're playing like a bitch, but to make it so that way Pantheon can't gank. And that's just as bad for you as it is for your team because then Pantheon comes back to your lane with like 3 kills and then fucks you when you should be able to just solo kill him like before, right? So in this context, the best things you can do for wards is if you could magically have a pink ward in river and a pink ward on the top of dragon, those 2 locations will stop all of his roams bottom pretty much. Outside of the ones where he bases. You can't really stop those, but okay. So if you're judging also by the way your bottom lane has been playing so far this game, they've always been pretty much under their own turret, just like you. So you're not really needing to protect bottom lane because they're also playing like bitches. Which honestly is what they should be doing in that lane. That lane is ass. You don't want to step up to Leona. And yeah, it depends also on the skill of like the Ezreal and the Janna if she's maxing W. Anyways, so he's definitely probably, right? Probably going to be looking up here. Not definitely, but probably. Your Urgot's always been pushing. Kane's already looked up here successfully twice. This is happening. So if you want to protect top lane, you probably could pink up here and ward the top side of your lane. These are the only 2 you can safely do, but this top side of your lane will protect you from Kane ganks, so that's a good ward for you, protecting you, and this ward protects from roams. So you really need to be starting to ward for your team, just like the level 1 context. You need to ping for your team, just like the time that Urgot died. And you need to pay attention for yourself, just like how you died against the Leona. So you see what's happening on the map. This play has just ended. There is nothing you can do up here anymore. If you go up top lane, best case scenario, you get 1 kill. That's the best case scenario. Now, let me go on this tangent and say the only point of a kill, the only thing that matters, the only thing you get out of it is what you get later. Because if you never get a turret after a kill, then you're just simply not going to win the game. And yes, getting a kill gives you more money, which lets you're more likely to then win the next fight. Great. But what do you get after the next fight? You get an objective, right? So it's still what comes later. But this is the important part of those kills. These turrets, wherever you land them, that's the important part. So if you go top, best case scenario, you get 1 kill. That's it. And you prevent their push. But they're not going to take this turret because Urgot has TP and is going to come back up here. So you're not going to lose this turret, and Urgot's going to be able to get the CS and stuff. So you're not losing anything up here. You're just getting 1 kill. Bottom lane right now, the turret's dying or is going to die, and you have at least 2 people ready to help you in this 2v2 scenario, and maybe 3 depending upon how long you can stall them. So right here, instead of even staying for this full wave, as soon as I saw Pantheon had left, I would have been looking to make a move. Now, my move would have either been to immediately be going up here and trying to have the Urgot kite back if he could. He does have flash. He has some potential to be kiting back. Or I would be looking down for this. Now, your bottom lane isn't here right yet to bait or help you with this, but like pushing this whole wave in is going to use all of your time pretty much. Because now they're already gone. And now you got nothing. And if you want to look at the map, this was warded, and you stepped right through it, and you didn't kill it. And you know why they backed off? Watch the minimap. That's a good part of the reason why they backed off. You see all these danger pings coming in? They probably would have turned on this. And the reason this ward is here, this ward is never, like, these side lane wards are never for protecting your own lane. They're just not. They don't warn you soon enough. These wards are to stop roams or to set up for ganks. That's all these wards do, these side lane wards. And this ward just protected from a roam, right? And you could have done that with your pink ward, prevented the Pantheon from roaming. Potentially. It's all about these chances, though. These things, little things you can do to help. You chased too far on that. And I need to turn their vision off. That's cheating. Alright. So, if I was predicting where the jungler was right now, I would be wrong. I'm just going to put that out there. I had their vision on, so I know where the Kayn is. The Kayn is down bottom, but I wouldn't have guessed that. I would have guessed that he was making his way up towards top. And this is just to prove to you that I am wrong with my predictions a considerable amount of the time, but as long as I get it right enough of the time, that's what matters. So since the Kayn's down here, you're at a kind of risky spot to be looking for this kill. Only kind of, though, because there's a good chance that you get the kill and get out even if they gank you at this point, because the Pantheon's just taken so much harass because he's not built any magic resist. Like, it's the nature of this lane. Pantheon needs a little bit of magic resist to survive. And then Kayn suicides. Okay, this is just awkward. And then the Pantheon suicides. Okay, yeah, this is awkward. How did that happen? Oh, he just walks up to you? What? Okay. So here's that window that I was talking about of it only matters what you get afterwards. You've literally just like wiped their team and people are basing. This is a huge problem. There's no reason to base here. You've got 15 seconds until Pantheon can come back. This is what you want to be doing as a bot lane, right? Pushing in. But there's the odds of you being able to stay for this entire turret are actually really bad because Pantheon can probably ult down here before it's done and pick up a kill and stop this. So what you should be doing is either one, looking to roam down, specifically expecting that the Pantheon's going to ult down here, pinging them back, or basing quickly so you can teleport to this. Because you're lowish mana, you just got a lot of money, and you have your TP. You need to be proactive with it, otherwise it's just not going to pay out. So you know what they want to do, and here's a TP coming in, right? It's not even Pantheon's ult, it's just what they're doing. And the Leona, for some reason, wasn't going in on that. Okay. This is a... You still haven't checked these bushes. And the reason I was kind of talking about the problem of you guys not getting or staying for this turret, etc., was there was an objective that was super fucking free that you guys as a team could have gotten. You just wiped mid, you just wiped bottom, you could have come over to Dragon, ping it, ping assist me, bring over that guy, bring over the Jarvan, and you fucking tank that shit because you're going to base anyways. It's a free objective, take it. And I don't actually value dragons all that much, I'll admit. But it's something you could have done with your time, which was more worthwhile than a little bit of turret damage. Because you guys both, between you, probably added up to like 70% of a turret. And with one good push, at like mid-game, you can take down 2 turrets for free. Chip damage doesn't really matter. Unless you're like in professional play or really rushing that first turret. And yeah, I'm noticing that you care a lot specifically about your own lane. Because you teleport back here. Again, you're teleporting to your lane. When you've had several opportunities so far to just recall and walk back to lane, you let your Pantheon disappear from vision without pinging him, where he could have been roaming down to this. They were just taking this turret, and it should have been super fucking free for the Pantheon to come down here and ult this. This bottom lane's really strong. And instead, he stays to die. I don't know why the Pantheon's deciding to stay. I honestly don't really understand your aggression windows because you do play back here. Was there any particular reason? I'm guessing you just stop your chase? Oh. No, it's not that you were playing back. You just were going back to the wave. Okay. And then Pantheon was too far back. Like, ugh. You should have died here. You want to look at those wards again? You put like... Oh, you put down your pink ward, right? That's what you did. Okay, so you put down like 2 wards and a pink ward. You need to put down more than that. You see the Kayn over here. You know your Jarvan wants to look for this. You're kind of low. If you walk over here, though, you're baiting for it and ready for this. This is a terrible fight for you to be taking over here because you have the opportunity to create a man advantage for absolutely fucking free. You could be walking over to where the Kayn is, 2v1 the Kayn, but instead you go on the Pantheon and separate into 2 separate 1v1s. There's no reason to not take this fight. Yeah, never, 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 never do this. Pay attention to the map. You just let this kill get away, and you let your kill get away because you're not paying attention. Alright. See? You ended up dying because you weren't targeting the correct person. And how do you pick these fights, right? You picked a very selfish fight because, like, once again, same thing as I was saying with your teleport. You're only concerned about your lane. Your wave management is only concerned about your lane on a heavy roam champion. Kassadin has great fucking roams. And you don't ward to set up aggressive roams or prevent your lane from roaming. So you don't care about anyone else's lane to protect them. And you don't pay attention to any other lanes to, like, take advantage of them. Where you had the obvious Pantheon play, right? You could have been down here and taken a kill out of that. Or the thing that just happened here, the Kayn. You could have taken a piece of this too. Instead, you ended up dying. And this is what will happen. Because if you're looking at the lead you had here, what lead? Right? You hardly have a lead. They got first turret gold and they got turret up here, right? You think you have a lead, but you don't. Because, again, this is a kill and this is a kill. There's no lead. And this is the importance of these objectives. Kills don't mean shit because you can get that gold from elsewhere anyways. And you're not going to win the game with just kills. But you do win trades, right? So you thought that, oh yeah, I'm going to go win this trade. Well, you can go win this fucking kill over... Okay, you get it. You get the point. You get the point. Now, where are you? Since the Pantheon is not building magic resist, you actually do have good split push potential this game. So you could be looking for that later. All right. So what's happening this game now is Ezreal's goal is to keep the bottom wave pushing into turret, but then not die, which is tricky because Pantheon can always ult him, but it's also not that tricky because he's an Ezreal and can kind of get away from everything. You don't really want to be pushing this wave. You want to be looking to take advantage of being Kassadin, so looking up for the Darius is a good option. If you have 3 people, it's a super free kill. Or looking for when they're rotating down for the Ezreal. But whenever this wave is just alone, and Ezreal hasn't pushed in this wave, there's no reason for 3 of them to not be mid. Right? Leona's going to be here and Jen's going to be here. But because Ezreal pushed that in, he drew them down there. This is a waste of time. If you're following my camp clearing, like, shit, you know, we're predicting where the enemy jungler is, this camp is yellow, which means that the jungler will be over here. Okay, I was wrong. He's over here. But where is he going? Ooh, is that going to be? Ah, fuck, I was wrong. Alright, as I said, I'm wrong sometimes. It happens. But you got the kill, so you ended up doing what I was saying to do. Okay. Nah, you're doing the right thing actually. You are doing the right thing. Because one of the best ways you can respond to pressure is by creating pressure. What you're doing here, split pushing this, is exactly the right thing. That fight that was happening over here, even if they had won it or if lost it, right? The context would have kind of been the same. Because it's already over by the time you get down here at this point, right? Ezreal's either out or he's dead. It's disengaged. There's no reason for you to be there. It's disengaged. You're going to get the turret anyways. So get more. And you couldn't have known all of that would have happened perfectly, but at the moment the Leona ult missed, right? It was decided. And you didn't know that. Now instead you're maximizing what you get, and this is really good. This is also actually pretty good. You just saw all of the people show up bottom. Jen's coming bottom. You just saw, I think, Pantheon bottom. I'm not confident, but it's pretty safe to be pushing this. Pantheon's over here. Yeah, you're seeing so many people on the map. This is great split pushing. I would stay on this for a little bit. You know they're coming for you because Jen just left. Jen's left, and you don't have any vision. Yep, back off. Great. You have a very long lane now. I would be paying attention to this spell. He just used a spell and be looking to go in on him. This is a long enough lane for you to chase. I would have assumed that Jen would be up here right now. You just see Leona off to the side. You know Kane's really far away too. Was a very good window for you to be going aggressive. You needed to start earlier, and now you're chasing too far. Oh, he went red? Interesting. I expected Shadow. So, okay, one of the things about split pushing that's pretty important is understanding which way waves are going to push. So, I'm guessing this wave is going to push to them, right? I'm guessing. I don't really know. I don't have like a science to this. I just go by like, yeah, that's a lot of minions. I go by feel. I played a lot. But anyways, whenever a wave is pushing like this, you don't need to be here because it's going to create pressure anyways. This wave, on the other hand, was a good wave for you to show up to and secure an objective. This wave is in a terrible spot because the enemy is here, and you don't want to fight them. There's a lot of enemies here. I don't know why he's just not getting any help. Yeah, he wasn't getting any help. I don't know. You should have died there too. But this objective was super free. And that's all that matters anyways, objectives. So pay attention to the way waves are pushing because it draws pressure, right? The Kane showed up to this wave, which created a potential numbers advantage. He couldn't then be mid if you guys decided a 5-man mid, but it would have been smarter for you to rotate all the way down bottom because you already knew some people were mid and you could have guaranteed this objective. Going top wave here is good because this is going to hard push into you. You do have a lot of pressure on the map that they are going to have to respond to right now because this is going to take this turret. So you know it's a safe wave to catch top even though you don't have vision. However, there's not really anything more than just catching this wave that's happening. You could catch it here, you could catch it here, you could catch it here. Doesn't matter. So I really respect that your team backs off of that actually. Okay. You're at a pretty dangerous spot now. Since no one's showing up to this wave has reset, and if there's no one already down here, that means no one plans on going down here. Which means everyone's on this side of the map, and you don't have vision anywhere over here, and you only see 3. You're at a very risky spot to be pushing this, and your team is fighting over here. With Baron up. This is a very bad spot. You see Darius show up middle, so you're fine to keep splitting. You see the 5th show up middle. I would not actually fully recall here. I would wait until they commit to the turret. Stay out of vision because now they're going to send someone for you. Or not. Well, I guess that makes sense too because they're just going to take 2 turrets. You have to base. You have to base here. This is a terrible shot call. You need to base because they're going to get this turret, and if your team's not here, because Jarvan's not up, Ezreal's not basing, Janna's not up, they could have potentially stayed for 3, but more importantly, they could have had a window to Baron. And it's very likely that they would have been able to take Baron quickly. They have a full AD team that's pretty strong. And staying for this, I mean, you did stop his bad TP, so I wouldn't if I was them I would not have been looking for that tower. I would have been looking for Baron. Yeah, okay. So they just gave you an inhib. Oh, I guess the gen killed you? Alright, well they still gave you an inhib turret, which was totally unnecessary. Right here, as the team, I would be looking to do Baron. Baron's super fucking easy to do. Don't be pinging that. Oh, he's pinging assist me. Okay. Baron's a good call here. Super fucking easy to do. Oh, but your Jarvan missed his smite. Well, that's unlucky. Well, I mean, they should have gotten it anyways, to be fair. So now it's kind of exactly to the scenario that I gave. They got Baron. You traded inhib turret for Baron, which was what should have happened with what your original shot call was. So you don't have Baron, and they do. The way that these waves are, these are terrible waves for you to be playing with them potentially able to rotate to. I would be trying to clear out bot wave here because they, like, top wave and bot wave both need to be cleared. And yeah, I just was going to favor bot wave because the next objective was dragon. Now, if you're going to do something like this, you always have to ping your team back. Otherwise, this is exactly what happens. Yeah. Okay. So I guess that's kind of game, or it should basically be decided here. Because once they get this inhib and the gold lead is actually even, never mind. That's still in this. I thought the gold lead was way worse than that. This is actually a good rotation by them to go bottom after that. And this was the wave you were trying to respond to prevent. So you could have prevented this turret take. At least just this one. One or the other. Keep in mind, you guys were ahead in gold, right? You guys were considerably ahead in gold, and these like decisions again snowball. They spiral. You need to build an armor item. Pay attention to what the enemy team comp is and adapt. You need to get an armor item. It'll make you so much more efficient. So your strategy right here is to, for starters, wait out Baron, and then after that, you're either going to want to group for the open inhibitor, or to try and create pressure mid lane so they can't take your open inhibitor, because you know they took your inhibitor earlier, and yeah, it's going to come back up by the time their Baron's down, so it's not like a huge deal. But you need to be keeping pressure on mid then to prevent this from spiraling too much. You know these waves are both been reset to bounce hard to them. And if I was them, I would be responding first to this wave, which means that in reality, even though this is the ideal, you're not going to get this. However, this wave is large enough for you to potentially get this turret with a rotation from mid lane. With where you're walking, you don't need to be walking through bottom lane to get there. You can just as easily walk this way. And that way you're with your team. You don't need to spend time on Krugs. That's a waste of time. It's not worth the gold at this point because you got just as much with this wave, right? And you know it's even more than that wave? This turret. And you know how you can secure this turret? Being here sooner. And then you wouldn't have to die because you ended up giving up more than those Krugs worth of gold back. What's he building? Oh yeah, full AD Jarvan, right? So he doesn't even have any armor. That makes sense. So if you're going bottom wave here, the only reason to be going bottom wave here is because you plan on teleporting to Baron or creating pressure for Baron. If you're planning on creating pressure for Baron, you would leave the wave here. If you plan on teleporting to Baron, you would continue pushing it. However, you guys have just lost this fight because you decided to go down to Baron. For that Baron play, right? And you're pinging them fall back, right? But at what state are you pinging them fall back? Can they really fall back here? At what point did you make your decision of where you were going to go? Right? Right here. This is where you made up your mind that you're going to this even wave to try and drag pressure for Baron, right? And you know this is happening, right? You know they're sieging mid-turret. Your team is attempting to get something and is succeeding at getting something. But you're setting up for the next play, which, you know, is okay. But if you're paying attention to who's alive, you know exactly what's happening here, and you know what exactly is going to happen. You could have been here to kill the Jhin. That you'd already be here, right? You're over here. You would be over here. Missed opportunity number one. If you killed the Jhin over here, then you could have probably also come over for the Leona. If you came over for the Leona, Ezreal probably could have continued kiting out just the Darius and killed the Darius. Missed opportunity, and it's huge. You could have saved your Ezreal's life. You could have killed 2 of them at least. Probably 3. And now at this point, your only play is to keep pushing bottom because they're just going to take Baron. And now you can't even push bottom because they sent some people to you. And this is not your team's fault for overextending. This was poor prediction by you. Because, again, showing you who was alive on their team and where your team was and what they were doing. And when you made up your mind, This definitely was your fault. Your mind's been made up. Here, you were already heading mid. This shit's already happening, and you can show up for it. It's not over by any means. And then by the time you're here, oh no, fall back. That's way too late. It's already happened, and you've commit to pushing for Baron, which then you're going to give up anyways, right? It's not worth creating pressure for Baron if you're going to sacrifice Baron for it. You're staying a really long time for these camps, and they hadn't taken Baron yet, and you're giving up the potential to try and get control over there. I know I understand, like, you're taking camps to, like, deny gold and stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's important, but you need to take advantage of your base timers, too. Like, all these camps and stuff that you're doing, you deny, I don't know, like, you probably denied 200 gold over here, which is great, but you gave up 1,500 gold to do it. You know, you caught this minion wave, which was like, 150 gold. You gave up like 900 to do it. You're using these things where you think you're creating leads, but you're actually giving up macro pressure, and that's just like your laning phase. You give up so much macro pressure by playing safe like this that you're probably used to your laners feeding other lanes, because the jungler has no reason to gank you because you're playing super safe, and then your mid laner just roams wherever he wants because you don't ward for it. And this does extend into what I was saying earlier, like the TP back to your lane, right? Again, this is like, well, the second TP back to your lane, or maybe third. I don't know. As I was saying, like, you only really care about your lane because you truly do. You truly only care about your lane, and that is a problem. Games like that where you care just about your lane are kind of like Call of Duty Team Deathmatch. And League of Legends is not Call of Duty Team Deathmatch. You can't just win by getting kills. Did they seriously steal this again? Holy shit, I didn't realize it was your team that got on Baron a second time. You shouldn't have had that opportunity, but, good on you guys, I guess. Why the fuck did they give you Baron again? Because you just killed two of them? How did you kill two? I'm not paying attention, I was ranting. Oh, he stayed for this turret? Okay. Yeah, okay. That was his bad. He did not need to stay for that. He could have just gotten Baron. And then what happens over here, there's no reason for him to be on this side. Okay, yeah. So just a lot of really weird plays that gave you guys Baron. You should have lost Baron this time too anyways, though, to be fair. So once again, fair is fair. You ended up losing this Baron when you deserved to lose this Baron. It's honestly kind of ridiculous, though, that you guys got two Barons that you should have lost, and then you lost them. So, you guys need to be creating pressure somewhere, right? This wave is going to slow, really slow push to the point that, to the extent that you're, like, not actually going to be able to use it even. Um, your top wave just got fixed, which means it's now going to be even here. So you have no waves at all to work with, and you guys are going to team fight while you have Baron, or no, while they have Baron. Oh, I again was making the assumption that you guys had Baron for some reason. I don't know. Okay, so you guys are just taking random team fights and winning them. Um, this team fight was really good because for some reason again Kane was top fixing that wave. Your team was there and theirs wasn't. If you're paying attention to the minimap, then that was a great fight. But there was no reason for them to be here, so again, this is just kind of weird. I really don't understand how this game's closing out. What you really just wanted to do was to wait out again, wait out Baron, and get exactly what you're doing. A split push going. They send people up here, and then you take the objective somewhere else. I would have stayed for this because they sent 3 up here. You probably could kill the Jin, and that's all that they would have here. By backing off means you're not paying that much attention to the minimap. Yeah. Darius respawned later. You would have been able probably to kill the Jin. Alright, so I think that I've found what your problems are. You don't use your time very well between like plays. For example, I don't know exactly what you're doing here. This is coincidence purely. I was going to talk about other things. But like you're doing Krugs when you should have been already on this tower. It's kind of a waste of time, even though you do it kind of fast. That 3 seconds was the difference between you dying here or not. And whenever you die here or not, and then that play can spiral into something else. Like you guys got just 2 kills and you were able to get Baron and then lose it again. But that's all it takes. That's all it takes. Those 2 seconds is all it takes. You have pretty poor warding all around. Your early warding especially, I haven't been paying too much attention to it at late game, honestly. I did see you go out of your way to ward a couple of times, which means you're thinking about it. But a lot of the areas that you are warding are not instantly going to pay off, or probably not going to pay off at all. So I would review some of your pathing. Again, jungle pathing is huge, but also how Pantheon's going to gank to know where wards would benefit him to predict whenever the bottom lane's coming up. Right, the Leona and the Jhin were roaming up, and you were already gone. Right, you were still top wave, and if you'd known that all of these things were happening, you probably would have adjusted your play. So you need to be predicting all of these different pathing things. Like the Pantheon, he was going to teleport or ult bottom. Predict this pathing. The Kayn was starting over here. Predict this pathing. It's really important. It's really important. Your laning, you don't play aggressive at all, and you really do just kind of like sacrifice your laning phase to either your team does well or your team doesn't do well, but you're just kind of going to wait for something to happen because you don't even try and trade onto him until like 9 minutes. And I mean, to an extent, I understand that, yeah, like you got your ult and stuff, great, but you had windows even after you had your ult and stuff that you weren't playing into that, which means that you just don't know how to play aggressive. And I do have something that'll send you that'll help a little bit. It's kind of different with mid lane. By kind of, I mean pretty drastically, but it'll still give you an idea of some things to look for. But yeah, so you don't create any pressure, and whenever you are pressuring, you pick kind of weird times. Like specifically the time that you came down here to create pressure for Baron, you weren't again paying attention to pathing, right? It comes back to all these different instances of paying attention to what other people are going to do, because you're thinking moves ahead. Every play isn't the instant that it happens. It's not a flash. It's not an ult. It's not whatever. It's the setup for that play generally. Because how come you just got that 1v1? Or how come you got that 5-man ult? It's because all of these things happen to make people be there. You know, this wave was pushing in, so Darius came bottom, right? It's a super simple play, but it means that there's a numbers advantage somewhere else, potentially. And whenever you have numbers advantages from something as simple as minion wave, it proves that everything is not one flash or one play, because this play involved nothing more than hitting a minion. That's not a flash. That's not that eventful, but it drew someone down here. And yes, I understand you knew this, because that's why you were coming down here to create pressure for Baron. But if you're predicting moves ahead, you need to add moves to their playlist. What are they trying to do? Because the Pantheon gank down here, the Pantheon gank on Urgot earlier, or the Kayn that was just running down your lane, or the instant that they were sieging these towers, all of these things show me you're not predicting at all what the enemy's doing. And that's why I'm going over the win conditions so much at the beginning of the game, because it shows you what their initial expectations are for what they're going to try and do. Of course, you update that with, oh, your bottom lane's not playing as aggressive as I expected, so Kane's only option is really to be going top or mid, and since you're also not playing aggressive, it's literally only top. Same thing with Pantheon. He's gonna ult top probably because it's his option. It's all he's got. So that's where you put your ward. Um, your mechanics and stuff, like I honestly don't review too much about mechanics because that's something that really just comes with practice, and I didn't notice anything that was like a huge problem. Your CSing is the only instant I bring out CSing is whenever you're wasting time doing jungle camps or whenever you're wasting time on a wave, because again, CSing kind of just comes with practice. That's shitty advice in my opinion. You want me to tell you like CS better? It's like great, I should CS better too. It's just it happens. What you do need to work on is this aggression and when to do it. Um, I talk a lot about jungle tracking in pretty much all of my games that I review. So watch another one if you have some questions about this. But you generally can track by just the timer, how long it takes them to do something, and where they started, and then those little icons when they come up. Super simple. Your you overstay, in my opinion, for this, but at the same time, they misplayed their response to you. There were so many misplays by the enemy team and your team this game that kind of like ideal play is ridiculous. But ideally, he wouldn't have teleported to this turret. He would have teleported to something further back. Or he would have just based, stopped you, waited till you based, and then teleported, right? Or something like that. He didn't need to teleport specifically to this turret. And if he did, he teleported too late, right? Of course you know this. But it shows that you shouldn't have been able to get these things, and that staying for these things would have probably traded Baron, which would have, if it was my elo, ended the game. You wouldn't have got the luxury of seeing potentially 3 Barons. And you're clearing the enemy's camps and stuff like that. That's okay for denying gold, but it's an opportunity cost. That you always need to be thinking about these opportunity costs. Let's see. I really do like that you bought a pink ward, but you also need to make sure you're providing vision getting out early, and you put that pink ward down. Otherwise, you're not helping your team with that. All right, I'm not too sure what else to talk about. Okay, wait, one last thing. The targeting selection of whenever you want to go on the 1v1 or potentially help your teammate out, always generally go for where you have the numbers advantage. So it's simple, but since you didn't act on it, I'll bring it up once more. All right, and that's it. That's it. I hope some of that was helpful, and good luck out there.